because this is a no-show again. It's another no-hitter. I'm not sure, why we can't attract attention to these go-to training sessions because it's really an opportunity for these kids to talk to folks like you. So why don't we forge ahead, you and I, and just talk a little bit. This is week 4
Mhm.
of the Lighting 2 syllabus. So these folks are done as of, well, Sunday's their last, due date, but they can submit up to Wednesday of next week to, get everything in. But so the discussion post this week was about supplementary lighting, location work, and the rental house. So if you want to have a brief conversation about that, I'm recording it and then I'll put it online for the kids, and anybody on the West Coast or in Chicago can watch this at their leisure.
Sure. I
Okay,
think it's great.
well, then without any further ado, folks, you can't see him, but think of this as the LA Film School Lighting to Radio Show. I'm your host, Professor Mike, and my guest this evening is Michael Uva, and he is the author of the Grip Book. I just happen to have a copy of it right here, and it is uh, in your resource materials, in your research resources. Um, and you can access this textbook at any point in the curriculum and get some of the great information that's in here about mounts and clamps and all things wonderfully grip. And with a great deal of instruction and tutorials as well to help with some of your simple or complex lighting setups. This is a really good book. I've been carrying a version of this around in my gear bag for a number of years, and I thank Mike for producing this, not only for guys like me who are geeks already, but for folks out in the field that if you don't have the luxury of working within a structured studio system or a mentoring system like the IATSE trade union, books like this are an excellent resource to keep you up on terms, to keep you up on availability of equipment, what's out there, what people are using. With each successive printing of these books, you get up to date information. I know this is which fifth edition. This is the fifth edition of this book. So Mike's working really hard to keep this up to date for you folks out there. So read it, learn it, and keep it with you. So, Mike, this week it's all about you go on a location scout, you get there and you realize, oh, uh, I don't have enough lights for this job, for this scene, for this commercial, for this shot. So the concept of the rental house is something we're batting around. And so I'm here in Orlando, and anybody that's working in this neck of the woods has a few resources. We have a VER here, a video rental service. We have a Hollywood Rentals Orlando office. And once upon a time, we had a Lee Lighting Panavision subsidiary here, but they've been long gone. Out there, who's your favorite rental house out in Los Angeles, Mike?
Well, first off, thank you for having me on your class, Mike. I appreciate it. And hello, all you filmmakers. How you guys doing? Um, as far as a favorite, it's whoever has my equipment is my favorite. Now, I may go to one rental house over another, but once again, it all has to do with cost structures. There's little jobs where people just can't afford to get all the big toys, so they got to go to a lesser rental house that will just basically deal and deal to give them the best deal so that they can get the rental. That being said, The major rental houses out here are Hollywood Rentals. Uh, oh gosh, what's the other guy? Cine
Cindy.
Lease. Yeah, and then you have the smaller units like Ragtime, Anytime, Bullet Grip, and those are kind of the intermediate people, and they're not as corporate as the other ones, and they kind of understand me, so I got a good working relationship with most of those companies. Now the bigger corporations are great. Don't get me wrong; they can give you all the movie equipment to make mega movies.
Right.
So it's just, you know, whatever you get. And then again, production, you may be working for a company who has a relationship with a certain rental house, say Hollywood Rentals or Cine Lease, and they want to go there. So you got to basically know that all the equipment that may be on a 10-ton truck at Hollywood Rentals may not be the exact equipment on a cine lease. So you got to compare apples to oranges in that situation. So you don't get caught in that situation where you're saying you go someplace and you may not have all the equipment you need.
So the important thing, one of the really important things to take away from that's that statement was, whenever you go to the rental house for whatever it is that you need to supplement your existing package, get a list. Make sure that they have it in stock at the time so you don't go all the way over to the rental house and find out that they're out of stock on the inventory that you need. Pull it on the floor and test it. Make sure that it's functioning, there's nothing wrong with it. Make sure that you get paperwork that documents what you took, the condition it was in when you took it, um, and then make sure that you hold on to that paperwork so that when you return it, you have a verified signature on company, you know, paper stock or whatever they're using. Uh, um, Sometimes the stuff is computer generated now, and it's litho paper or whatever. But just make sure that you have documentation of what you took, that it was in good condition when it left, it's in good condition when you got it back, and so forth. Mike, how often do you get to pick and choose the rental houses that you rent equipment from, or is that usually a deal that's struck for you by production or the powers that be?
Let's just say the more established, older salts around the neighborhood get a pretty good choice for the most part. We know most of the guys out there who all the players are. And
Mhm.
so if I got a good working relationship with Hollywood Rentals and I need a certain job, I can tell production, I really prefer to go to Hollywood Rentals. You're welcome to go to whoever you want, but I think I can get you the best deal. And then you can compare apples to apples, apples to oranges along the line. But when you're starting out, you may, if you're a newbie, a new gaff or a new key grip, you may be stuck with a delegated house that you got to work out of. And what you said is so true. Check that equipment out because once it leaves the door, as I always tell them, you got an out of sight guarantee. Once it's out of sight, so much for your guarantee.
Yeah, right. You broke it, you bought it. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't touch unless you want to own it. Yeah.
Do you still sport your own gear, or are you just strictly now showing up and using the rented truck and equipment?
Well, for years it was wonderful when you could support your own gear because it basically you got this gigantic toolbox. But
Yeah.
the cost is almost cost prohibitive now, unless you're working virtually every day or 3 times a week, 4 times a week
Right.
to pay for it. Because you're looking at it just for a grip alone, a basic package, you're looking $50,000 to $80,000, to make it right, to have all the bells and whistles. So
That's as much as
that's
a
an
school
idea.
loan.
It's a what?
As much as a school loan.
Exactly that, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's easier, although not as lucrative in the long run, but a lot easier just to go to the rental house. But going back to having your own equipment, production, I won't say that they're lazy. They're just they may ask, "Do you have your own equipment?" So they don't have to go with anybody
Sure.
else.
Sure.
They don't have to deal with it, and they know they can beat you up a little bit on your rate because they gave you the job. So
Yeah. We
your
did you a
truck may
favor and gave you a job. Now do us a favor and give us a discount. Yeah, I've heard that one before.
Yeah, the hand one hand washes the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's what we do here in Hollywood
In
and
fact,
Florida and Chicago.
yeah. I've actually had to bid a few times against a couple of the majors out in Los Angeles to get my own gear on a job.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
yeah, submit competitive bids with Cine Lease, Universal Lapdoc, Hollywood Rentals, and the Coyote Brothers. So it's
Right.
pretty competitive in a production center like Los Angeles, but some of our folks are in small cities. Maybe they're not production centers necessarily at all, and so they're learning how to make films, and they're going out in their community, and they don't have a lot of services available to them in the business community. That's where places like B&H Photo, I think, are really helpful for folks. Adorama, um, and a number of online places where you can either rent gear, like you can even rent lights now from some of the folks online that started off renting cameras and lenses, like Lens Pal and Lens Pro to Go, and some of those folks who now offer things like light panels and Kino kits and things like that. So some of our folks are in some pretty out of the way places. What do you think about these things, Mike? As long as I got you on the what is it? It's not the phone, it's the computer, on the internet. Um,
On the
what do you think of these? These are the
road rag.
Matthews Road Rags. It's a location net set, basically. This one's 18 by 24, I think, and it has a couple of collapsible frames in there, and it builds a here's a solid. It looks like an open end, but well, it actually is an open end. There's no hard part of the frame on this side, and it's a collapsible deal, and you can put it in your gobbo head or your C stand if you happen to have some. And the whole thing folds up and goes back in that sleeve when it's time to pick up and head out. So I wanted to talk to the kids about stuff like that. There's things like this out on the market now that are really inexpensive. You can pick them up even off of places like Amazon for $5-6, and they're pretty strong. They'll grab stuff, and you've got obviously you've got a pin for your if you got a little LED going on or something like that, um, or the old standby for a lot of years before Cardellini came on the scene, the Manfrotto Mayfer clamp with
Right.
the photo pin in it, which you push the button and loosen the knob and a variety of other features, and you have a little pin in here. You can either mount that to a camera or a light or whatever, and give yourself a few small tools that you can cart around with you. These folks, I don't know if you can see it behind me, but that's one of the soft boxes that they have there. It's got 5 bubbles in it up in here in the lamp house, and it's got
Right.
a center diffuser and a front panel on it. I've got another smaller one around here that they use on a boom stand. So we're talking about, on the scale of the very small right now in terms of what these folks have been working with so far. That's why it's really important to understand what the rental house is and what it can do for you. Because in the very beginning, when you don't have it, if you don't have a lot of money to buy gear, but you do find that you're working, you can save money on buying the gear if you know where you can go and rent the stuff that you'd like to work with. Like if you like LED panels like that guy there, or HMIs like that guy there, you can go and rent them, save yourself the money of the purchase, and then just make sure you take care of the gear, use it, make a little money on your shoots, and then return the stuff, the next business day. So that's where we're at. Um,
Mike, what I would do when I had my own rental house, I had a couple of trucks and some lights and some equipment. I would purchase an item if I could make a 25% return on investment on the very first job. That means I was getting it basically 75%. I knew I was going to buy it. I'm going to use it. I'm going to get 25% right back.
So in
So now
other
I bought
words,
it.
so if a piece of gear costs you $100, you needed to make $25 in rental on that piece of gear the first time it went out to give you the confidence that you can get your money back with subsequent rentals. Correct?
Absolutely. That way I knew that I could make it. Now, on the major units, like a bigger light or something, you're not going to make that kind of dough back. But on the smaller stuff, and if it's
Yeah.
going to be a tool like a flag or 12 by 12, uh, Grifflon or Ultra Bounce or Solid. Those are the kind of things that you're gonna make your money back because you use them constantly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that I'm gonna use it on virtually every job, and it's gonna take me anywhere from 4 rentals to, let's say, 20 rentals to get my return on investment. If I'm in the $400 or $500 range.
Yeah.
Um, so that's okay. It's worth it to me in that situation.
Yeah.
But once again, it's a cash and carry business. You're basically taking a chance on you renting that equipment out. But if you're really good at your craft, they're going to call you back, and then it's a small job. You can bring your stuff on, give them a discount, and make it up a little bit at a time. You're not going to make a big chunk of change all at once.
That's one of the things that I mentioned to folks who are just starting out is there's a reason why we call it film business and not film club. It's not film friends. It's film business. And you have to think about it that way. You have to think about, what it means when you negotiate a rate, what it means if you get a union contract where you get health and welfare benefits paid while you're on the job. If you don't have a contract, what are the provisions that are in place if you get hurt? Will you get covered for workman's comp? And
Uh-huh.
things like equipment rentals and things that can earn you extra income if you treat your career experience like a business. You get out of your career what you put into it. So if you just want to show up for work and punch a clock, you're always going to be at the mercy of whatever the negotiation was that defined your job position and the rate of pay for that. And it's pretty much going to be an hourly. If you own equipment, you can uh, act as a surrogate rental house. You can make the money on the rentals. Of course, you have to put a little bit back. You have to cover upkeep, maintenance, and storage on that equipment when it's not working. But if you can keep your equipment working and rented on whatever it is that you're doing, either your own jobs or other people's jobs, you can rent your gear to other people as well. This is the business aspect that we're talking about. You can double, triple, sometimes quadruple your income by treating this as a functioning business, can't you, Mike?
You're 100% correct. The one thing that you want to do on what you brought up is the maintenance of that equipment. You don't want to send out junk. So it's got to go out looking pristine. And when it comes back, if it's damaged, you're going to have to call them on the spot. It's got to be replaced or repaired. And then the next time it goes out, it's got to look brand new again. Nobody wants to rent a beat up old car. They want a
Right,
new, nice car. And
right.
it's the same with equipment. Otherwise, they don't come back to you.
That's what makes it really important to get at least a 25% return on your initial rental because it's not going to take long for that gear to get lived in and start looking a little weary. And so when it comes time to replace that gear, you need to have made enough money to pay for your initial investment, enough money to have paid yourself a little bit of a dividend, and you have to lastly have made enough money to replace that piece of gear with a new piece of gear and keep that cycle going through the course of your career so you don't send out the beat up gear and get a reputation of being the guy with the hodgepodge equipment package.
All correct, Mike. 100% correct. What I would do with the gear when it became unserviceable for rental, I would mark it as such with a certain color tape on the bag or whatever, or the edge of the rag. And then I'd always get the schools that want to use stuff. So that's
Yeah,
the stuff I would lend to them.
yeah,
The schools never have any money. Here, guys, come pick this up. You can use this. If you wreck it, don't worry about it.
yeah,
Try not to. I mean, if you just damage it for no reason, then I'm going to stick you half price or whatever. But
right.
I've got my money out of it, and it's I'm thinking in the long run, these kids are going to go out there, they're going to use the equipment, and out of 10, one out of 50, one out of 100 may come back to the rental house who gave them the equipment. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I've already gotten mine out of it. It's kind of a way of giving something a little back to the community.
Sure, sure. That's great. I like being involved with stuff like that. You can, as long as you've made your return on investment, I suppose you can always turn around and then sell the gear or donate the gear and get paid one more time for whatever that action happens to be. I know equipment doesn't generally get much of a return when you resell it, but there's always the donation value as well, and it's great for a school that doesn't have any money, like you say.
Yeah.
Um, well, having discussed equipment, what's your approach to extra manpower? Because now we've gone to a rental house, we've rented a truck full of gear, and it's just me. So now I got to have help. I got to have somebody to look after what I rented, a best boy. Hopefully that best boy's got friends or acquaintances he can call up and we can get some folks out here to help distribute all this gear. We've got a location shoot and we've got to get it taken care of. What's your approach when you go on a location scout and you realize that what you're going to have to do on that location is larger in scope than what you normally run with on a day-to-day basis on that shoot?
That's a good question. Um, Say we go out and they say, okay, Mike, we want a crane shot over here. Well, I know minimum manpower on a crane is two, possibly three people. You need somebody on the front end working the arm, and you need somebody on the bucket.
Okay.
So there's two, and then maybe somebody in the middle controlling it if it's a big crane, that type situation.
What I
But
need now is I need a picture of a Lenny arm, or I need a picture of a giraffe, or I need a picture of even an Electra or a Titan, one of the vehicle mounted cranes, so that these folks know exactly what you're talking about. So a crane, unlike a jib, which is a smaller version of a crane, the crane has a pedestal and it's either mounted on a vehicle or it can be mounted on a chassis that rides on track or mounted on a tripod or some sort of a walking non-rolling base, and it's going to have a large segmented arm. A lot of times you can assemble it in a variety of sizes. At one end, you're going to have a camera mounted on either an automated electronic head that can be controlled remotely or on a fixed head that has to be adjusted and then locked into place through the arc of the move. On the other end, you've got a weight bucket. So in the middle, you got a fulcrum. You have a long arm. You have a weight bucket on one end with ballast, basically, and then the camera on the other end. And generally, would you say, Mike, it's a 1/3 to 2/3 relationship between the fulcrum, the camera, and the weight bucket?
absolutely spot on. On
Oh,
average, yeah, it's a 2-to-1 deal. The longer the
okay.
arm, of course, then you go 3-to-1, whatever
Right.
situation.
So
Yeah.
at one end, you got a whole bunch of. Can they use lead weights anymore, or has it now become a
Oh, yeah.
biohazard? Okay, so at
No, we
one
still
end, we
lead weight.
got weights from the sporting goods store, or lead weights, dive weights, or custom lead weights from the rental house. And then we've
Right.
got the camera head mounted on the other end, and it balances itself all out to where we can get that. It's like a teeter totter. Weights on one end, camera on the other end. It has to balance so that the idea was when I used to weight a crane up before I threw it in the shot, if I could affect the move up or down with one or two fingers, and then when I let go, the boom would stay in place, I knew I had a pretty good balance on that. Wouldn't you say, Mike?
100% correct. Yeah, you want to be able to let it go. If you ever set a crane and you walk away, take your hand off it, and it starts to drift, it means you're off center.
Because
It's the
otherwise, you
easy,
got what? You got a catapult.
exactly that. Yeah.
You
So you
let
don't
go of
want
that
anything.
crane, and then boo, the camera goes off, and
So you got to watch it. You know, it'd be a good crane. You're talking about the Titan crane with maybe a Lenny arm, where you got the man standing on the platform running the Lenny arm. Then you guys got a
ah,
guy running the arm. Then you got a guy running the bucket. Then you have a guy in the hot seat. So there's 4 grips alone just on the crane, let alone all the ground lighting supporting the electrical uh, 12 by 12s, 20 by 20s, solids, flags, tents, whatever else may be going on.
You're
So
talking
that's
about
where your
a
body
compound
count.
crane. Talking about a compound crane now.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's a good story. We on Pirates of the Caribbean 2, on some of the island shots in the Bahamas, we had the key grip. Um, Mike Popovich had a method of hiring a 40-ton construction crane, removing the pulley house from the top of the jib, and installing a custom steel platform, which bolted into place where the pulley wheel was removed. And then on that platform, they could mount a segmented Lenny arm, or in the case of Pirates, they put a techno crane on the platform. And so the 40-ton crane would go up, and then from the platform, the techno crane could articulate and extend in and out from the top of that platform to a height of about 160 feet, which, when you got to get to the top of a pirate ship, kind of figures. You know, you need a move like that. That's a huge undertaking, a lot of guys and a lot of help to do something like that. I hope the folks in this program get an opportunity to see something like that one of these days, because let me tell you, you see it once and you'll never forget it. It's one heck of an undertaking. It's amazing sometimes what these guys like you, can do in the field when asked and given enough time to prepare for it and order the right kind of gear.
I still get amazed seeing, especially the young kids that come up now. Um, I was lucky I had good teachers, and we did a lot of this stuff old school. But I see these kids, I call them kids, 30, 40-year-olds.
Thank you. Well, I'm a little past that.
But even younger, but some of the, and I'm talking about massive jobs like you're describing,
Yeah.
and they just have a set consciousness and awareness. It impresses me. Those are the kind of guys I want on my team anytime I can get those type of people. They're wonderful out there. Now, the up and comers, like you're saying, they're not going to have this right off. But guess what? We all started at the beginning, wherever the beginning may be. I did low budget, no budget, free budgets, never to be seen in budgets. And then we just worked our way up the ladder till we get to the biggie.
Interesting thing about those little shoots, though, at least in my experience, if it's a small film, it's a low budget film. If it's a low budget film, that means they can't afford to just throw money at a problem until it goes away. So a low budget film might actually force you to be more creative in your choices and more ingenious in some of your solutions, because you're doing it on a reduced budget. And these people who are financing this thing that you're on, they might not be able to afford to run down the street and rent a techno crane at 25 or $4,000 a day. You got to know how to figure this out with the tools you got with you, or what you can get at the rental house at a reasonable price. And you have to affect solutions that not only are cost effective, but they're safe and they're expedient. I mean, you can build them pretty quick on set, and they give you as closely as possible the look you're going for.
What you're saying is 100% correct. And here is a good example, and it's not a plug for your class, but exposure. If they didn't have guys like you giving them this exposure, how are they going to know to, unless if they only know the big way, they're never going to know the little way. Then they're not creative. Then they get a monkey to do it. Anybody off, that,
Yeah.
yeah, just spend lots of money type situation.
I mean,
But
let's face it, when you got deep pockets, I mean, money can solve almost any problem that I've ever come across. It's when you don't have the money that you got to be on your toes.
you get real creative. And that was wonderful. For all those years that I worked on non-union shows, I think I worked a little bit better because you got to work closer with everybody, and you have to understand everybody else's needs to help them out as well as expedite your own job. And that, when you're starting out, you're usually not, except for the lucky ones that pop right into the union. But for the rest of us, take a while to get into it, and then you don't get so spoiled. You understand what it takes. You got to use every single dime to the best. You got to use that last bit of paint in the bottom of the can, to make the scene work, and that's okay. You actually go home feeling pretty good about yourself.
All right, let's take something that you said and focus on that for a minute. So we talked about the need for a rental house or someplace to obtain supplementary gear when we got a large shoot. We talked about the extra manpower that you frequently need when you acquire additional gear to do a specific shot. We're talking about ingenuity. We're talking about thinking on your feet. Um, and something else that you said, which is also something really important because we're also talking about the film business as a business. And at least once upon a time in this country, maybe mom didn't go to work, but dad certainly went to work every day, and he went to work at a company where he, he invested a lot of time, the lion's share of his working life, um, and in exchange for his dedication and his craftsmanship on the job, he was given benefits packages like health insurance and retirement benefits and things, so that later in life, when it came time for him to retire from this job, he could do so and still maintain a certain quality of life, and in between that time have adequate health care and insurance in case there's a problem. Because God forbid, when you work on a non-union, a small, low-budget film where every nickel is accounted for, one of the first things that folks find very seductive to take off of a budget is the cost of the insurance. And so you may be working on a small production where if you do get injured, there may not be any workman's compensation insurance in place for you. You go to the emergency room and you find out that that bill's going to your house, not the producer's house. So let's talk briefly about what it means to be part of a trade union organization and what the benefits of that can be, so that if these folks ever get to the point in their career where they're working a lot, they're getting good jobs. The good jobs have reasonable budgets to where they're making good money. And when you get into a position like that, chances are these shows also offer either a way into the union, or if you already have a union card, they have a contract that they have ready for you to sign that's going to guarantee your rate, your benefits package. And it's going to describe to you all the conditions on the job that you're going to work under that are deemed sufficient for that particular contract. So let's talk about the benefits of the IATSE, because that's the AFL-CIO theatrical and stage employees. The IATSE branch of the AFL-CIO has been a really beneficial part of my career, and it's one of the pieces of the film business formula that we need to touch on.
I don't know what the actual amount of unions left out there, but it's got to be under 20%, I'm guessing,
Yeah,
compared to what it was in the 50s and 60s.
yeah,
But I was not a big union guy initially because I was making good dough, like you said. Had my trucks and had some equipment,
yeah.
nice 3, 4 times my normal income, and I called it adult money. But then I got into the union, and then I realized that they were actually looking out for me, not just now, in the long run. And now that I've since retired, I have got some of the best motion picture medical insurance covered along with my Medicare. Uh, but I have dental, I have eye care for the rest of my life. That's a wonderful savings alone. But the fact that you know that psychological, you're covered. You're never going to have to go to the community service,
Yeah.
wait in line for 6, 8 hours just to have somebody see you.
Or the,
The
the
benefit
clinic,
of
God
that,
forbid, the clinic where the treatment might be less than up to standards of a normal hospital, and wait times and availability as well. Really important to think about what can happen to you. In my own situation, where I actually tore the cartilage and the tendons in my knee on Armageddon in 1988, and I didn't get that repaired until 2009. So I worked on that damaged knee for a decade before I got it fixed. Now I had insurance. I just wasn't paying attention to my own physical health and well-being, and I was working constantly. And if I wasn't debilitated enough to where I couldn't show up for work, then I wasn't going to let it bother me. But the thing of it is you have to think about your later years. You have to go about this whole situation assuming success and assuming that you're going to work for 20, 25, 30 years. And what kind of person, what kind of individual will you be at the end of that time? Physically, mentally, health wise, what position are you going to be in? Because this is hard work. And if you do it for your entire life, like we've done, uh, you definitely have some things to consider when you reach retirement age. Things hurt a lot more than they used to. You're taking more Advil every day than you ever thought you would, and you got to make sure that you got a doctor that you can go to, knows your history, and can take care of you, and make sure that you have a good quality of life after your film career, so you can teach.
You're preaching to the choir. Now, when I was young, I was super dumb. It's never going to happen to me. I'm Superman. I was just super stupid. Okay, but what you're saying is, here's a good analogy: a football player. You don't see any 50, 60-year-old football players out in the field getting smacked.
No, you don't.
Okay,
They
and
think they
the
can play
brain,
that long, but they can't.
yeah, exactly. We all think that we can. The brain says yeah, and the body goes, "There's no
Yeah,
friggin' way."
yeah,
Okay. So we know that, and I've learned that with the film industry. I can't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I can't come home at 10 and do it repeatedly for a week. I did 4 days in a row. I thought I was going to go on oxygen for three afterward, but I thought I could do it. Like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
we used to do
But
that like rolling out of bed once upon a time, didn't we?
absolutely, yeah, it's like jumping off a tailgate. Man, I
No
don't
problem.
jump off anything. I step down lightly, or I ride that tailgate all the way down with the equipment, of course.
With a
But
50-pound Rapid Bandit on my shoulder. That's how I hurt my knee.
we were Superman. We thought that, and it's just our nature to think that way, and it's okay. Realistically, some people are going to listen to this and go, "Ah, bah humbug." All right, so guess what? Someday you're going to be a fat old man, like I said I'd
like
never
me.
be. I am, and then you're gonna go, man, I wish I listened to that little garden gnome when he was telling me about all this stuff. But it's one of those deals. I can tell you fire's hot, but until you stick your hand in the fire, you're never gonna know.
My
So
dad
fire's
says
hot.
that.
Pardon?
My dad says the same thing. In fact, he tells me a lot lately the story about how when I touched a match for the first time.
Yeah,
You got to learn. You get burned one good time and you never forget.
sure, sure.
So that's pretty much the gist of it. It's knowing your limitations. When you come up against those limitations, what can you do about it? If it's simply a limitation in technology, you can go to the rental house. You can acquire what you need. Once you do that, you have to understand the implications of that. You got to get yourself some help. You got to work smart. You got to get yourself some help. Hiring extra folks on the job is a great way for you to fulfill all of the requirements of the call sheet, get the job done on time, uh, get everything that the director and the director of photography are trying to get in camera, so that they don't have to come back and try and do that whole thing again. Every time you have to redo something or go back to a location, it's twice as much money as the first time. Working smart when you do it, getting yourself some, if possible, collective bargaining or union help and assistance in your life to help structure your financial plan so that you can have a long, successful career and be covered for cataclysmic disasters like injury or debilitation. Um, Treat this career like a business. Don't don't treat it like don't take it for granted, because as quickly as it starts, it seems like it's over, and you look back and you think about all the things you've done, and it was fun and exciting, but it doesn't last into your 50s and 60s. So you have to have a plan and enjoy yourself working safely, working smartly, and working efficiently. Um, What else? What else can we add to that?
I think you've covered all the bases. Once again, you your students are coming to you trying to learn this, which is wonderful. That tells me right off up front they want to understand what we know, and we're not telling them any. There's no real magic other than hard work, smart work, safe work, whatever it takes to go the distance. You know, won't get into the jokes about the two bulls looking down at the herd of cows,
Don't
but
tell that.
but the thing is, just mosey on down and
Yeah,
work for the long run.
because that's important. You're saying going the distance. The distance isn't a 12-hour day. The distance isn't a week. The distance isn't a year. The distance is the full duration of your career, whatever that
Correct.
whatever that becomes. Some folks, it seems like it's over as quickly as they got in, and they can't make it work. Some folks, they're in it 5 years and they're on to something else. 10 years seems to be kind of a magic number where folks start asking themselves life questions. You know, do I want to do this for another 10 years? Do I have it in me physically to do this another 10 years? Or hell yeah, I want to be in it for another 10 years, and they go another 10. Whatever it is, you know, try to define it for yourself as quickly as you can. Understand what's going to be involved in that. You know, you're in it for the long haul, so you don't want to flame out too quick. You want to plan ahead, and you want to have some idea how far ahead you're talking about, so you can structure your whole career, your union involvement, your benefits, your your goals, and everything to fit into whatever that time space is that you've defined for yourself, and then go out and go for it.
100% correct. When I got in, Mike, I was kind of late in this business. I was 28 at the time. And I looked
Wow.
around and saw all the film people. And I went, those people are crazy. And in 5 years gone
Dysfunction is
by,
crazy.
I know. And I thought, man, they're all nuts. And then 5 years later, I went, oh my God, I'm one of those people. It
Yeah,
was like a
yeah,
blink of an eye. And
yeah.
then I hit the 10-year mark. I go, well, what am I doing with my life? Do I really want to be doing this? And then all of a sudden it was the 20-year mark. The thing is, I had so much fun doing what I was doing,
Yeah,
and the harder I worked, the luckier I got. You hear all the
yeah.
cliches. They come from someplace, but it's true. I've had a blast. I cannot believe they paid me so much friggin' money over the years to do a job. And I'm glad I retired before they figured out I'd been a fraud for the last 35 years.
It's like robbing banks for a living.
It really is.
Yeah,
No mask, no gun, just hand me the money. Show me the money. But it's been
yeah,
so good. And the respect that you get from your peers, I mean, you earn that respect. Let me tell you. Now, if somebody's a schmuck, you know he's a schmuck. If someone's a pirate, you know he's a pirate. A pirate being,
Arr.
yeah, quit. And pirates don't last long, but reputations go out real good.
That's
And it's
well
funny,
said. That's well said.
I've had this reputation. My wife, actually, say my two ex-wives don't agree with it. They go, "Oh, Mike Uva, he's such a nice guy." Well, neither one of my ex-wives will say that,
Oh, they're
but
both in agreement.
yeah, they'd agree. I'm not a nice guy. And the deal is, I'm not a nice guy. But when I come to work, I'm a nice guy. I put on my Hollywood face. I smile and nod like, yes, sir, no, sir. I'm working for somebody. I am an employee. And I've never, ever forgotten that. But I'm so grateful that I get to do a job that's so much fun. And I've gotten to travel the world. And I guess it shows in my smile, maybe my eyes, my appearance. I come to work ready. I come to work early. And I care about my job. I look like I want to be there. And it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. You show up with that smile and that can-do attitude. You know, you other people notice. I tell my students, look around the room. You know, you can see the people who really want to be here, and you're going to make your own conclusions of it. Maybe they're going to change your opinion a little bit down the line, but you're going to make that first opinion. And when I look around the set, hopefully they look at me and people go, what's that old geezer still doing here? You know, he's smiling and nodding and saying, yes, sir, 3 bags full, whatever it takes. And I give him I sell myself at 90% and deliver 110, and they feel like they got their money's worth, and they
There you
invite
go.
me back.
There you go. There you go. Well said. Um, one final point that I'll put on it is I had a conversation with one of the students just this morning, and basically, if you could sum it all up, whether we're a lighting technician or whether we're a grip or whether we're a camera person, um, we're problem solvers,
Right.
and we go into the situation with a clear head and an informed, educated mind with a healthy dose of imagination, and we take whatever's presented to us in the form of a problem. We wrap it with creativity, and we present it back as a solution for these folks to have their movie. Um, and through all of that, we're doing it. We're doing it with a plan. We're doing it with a method. We're being safe, smart. Uh, we're empowering ourselves to do good work, and hopefully that work lasts for a good long time.
Now, what you're saying is perfect, Mike. Now, there's got to be a place that you can actually, I don't know what they call it, where you could go and learn this stuff beforehand so you don't show up and do it on the job. What could they call those kind of places? Like a classroom or school or internet, virtual reality. But you learn this stuff, you pack your bags full so when you do show up on a set, you can go, aha, I have the
Aha!
answer.
Aha!
And then all that struggling, all that time you thought, what am I doing here? You're going to get those aha moments. Go, oh my God, this is what they were talking about. We're
Yeah.
not giving you any secrets, but we are giving you the keys to the kingdom.
Hopefully, sooner than later, you have those aha moments.
Yep.
Well, Mike Uva, author of the Grip book, thanks so much for joining me in the conversation tonight. I hoped that the turnout would have been a little bit more robust, but nevertheless, we had a good conversation anyway. We'll put it up there. I'm sure the folks will check it out tomorrow or in the evening tomorrow night, and we'll see some feedback from the discussion. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it. And let's get you out here again very soon to talk to the kids, and let's spread a little bit of this goodwill and a lot of this hard-earned wisdom, and bring
A,
these folks up right.
a real honor and a real pleasure, Mike, as always, buddy.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It was good talking to you again, and I'm just going to push the stop record button here now, and process this recording.